talk more about those brilliant market movements on a Monday, we've got Chantal Marx, and she's the head of external research and content at FNB Wealth and Investments. A very good afternoon to you, Chantal. And it was a very, very good start to the week for the JSE, just shy of 3% in the green to end off the trading day. Why did we see such amazing performances across the board, actually, on the local market today?
Yeah, it certainly was a welcome surprise, particularly at the start of trading, that Asian markets actually turned around and showed really strong gains after initially being down quite substantially. So I think what has happened here is that we have a situation where it does seem as if the market is really looking for something to be excited about. We had a pretty rocky Communist Party gathering over the weekend where China's president actually gave some really interesting comments surrounding its geopolitical stance on quite a few countries. And there was actually a little bit of concern around it. They also didn't say anything about zero COVID, but they did mention that they will continue to support the economy and that they are still really rallied behind the Chinese growth story. And I think that that's ultimately what the market took a hold of. And we saw commodity prices increase quite nicely. Of course, that's very positive from a South African market perspective. And anything that was geared to a stronger rand actually performed well also, because the rand also performed very, very well on the day, perhaps taking advantage of a stronger dollar and maybe some risk-off sentiment.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about the rand and its strong performance that we saw today. Is it something we could look will be maintained, or will it, stay true to its name as being one of the most volatile currencies in the world? Is this going to be short-lived, or what are you seeing in terms of a short-term outlook for the local currency?
So I do think that prevailing sentiment is still quite negative. I misspoke earlier. I mean, risk-on sentiment was really dominant today. But the prevailing sentiment is still quite shaky. So as long as we have uncertainty in terms of what the inflation outlook is, what's going to happen to interest rates in the US and elsewhere, we could expect the rand to be quite volatile. But during times of short-lived or a couple of days of positive sentiment, you would expect the rand to do very well because it is so volatile, because it is so geared to sentiment and geared to global markets. So I think it could be short-lived, but as I mentioned at the start as well, the market is looking for anything to be excited about at the moment. So if we start seeing a bit of a shift and that momentum starts moving towards the upside, we could expect more good things for the rand in terms of its strengthening.
Good things that are happening for Calgro M3, Chantal. They gave out their results today. A very solid performance, and they owe it to their strategy in terms of cost-cutting and efficiencies that they've put in place. But also they're indicating that the memorial parks are where the money's at, and so that is going to be the expansion focus. What did you make of them?
Yes, and funnily enough, the Memorial Parks business actually didn't perform that well this period, but they've been investing a lot in marketing, which explains some of the performance of that specific business. It still makes up a pretty small amount, and it is a small contribution to the total revenue and profitability of the business. And what we saw specifically in this half was that the old business, the business of putting up apartments and structures and housing to sell ultimately to the end market, actually performed quite well. I also agree that the Memorial Parks business is a really interesting concept in South Africa, especially if you consider the state that some of the burial sites in South Africa is in. And it does offer the possibility of providing your loved one with a more dignified place to be buried in. And I think a lot of South Africans will really like that. But I mean, if this specific result around the Memorial Parks business showed us anything, it's not a sure thing, right? You will have periods where death rates will, for example, fall, and you won't be selling as many burial sites because of economic pressure. But thankfully, their businesses seem to not be moving together. So when Memorial Park is under pressure, the infrastructure business or the traditional business actually fills in the gap quite nicely.
As always, Chantal Marx, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. That is Chantal Marx, and she's the head of external research and content at FNB Wealth and Investments. And that's all.